One. I hope everything here can hear me. All good? Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here and to share our story. Together with Nataly, we are both graduates, but I'm graduated from emerging technology, and Nataly graduated from landscape urbanism, and during the AA started our conversation in the beginning in the bar, but then we really took it further as a lot of collaborative projects. And we founded a studio together, and the name of the studio is I am a studio, wherever you like. But as we like to say, we look for a third entity between nature and technology. And what is it? Like, what is something third like? And it's become like, we tried to formulate it for like a while. Is it a biotech? Is it something familiar? And then we understood that in every project we tried to find something that haven't been, maybe it's not there yet, because it's something in between, but in respect to both, to nature and technologies. And as we look into different infrastructures and what's already exists, and of course, like, you can be better than nature, but could you implement something or find additional layers that can be activated to make bioinfrastructures, as we like to call them, perform better? And in this case, we work on a different scale. Sometimes it starts from something very small, as a very biological, like as a microorganism, something that floats in the air, or like, as we talk later about mussels, mycelium, but all kind of elements that can be. But then it could spin to a planetary scale. So we work across all scales. And sometimes you need to zoom out to come back and to find something small. And here is like a quick example from like some of our projects, but you just see how everything is connected. You probably looked before in the space, and then you felt how everything is connected when you look on a microscope, how you look on the plant, in the plant, and the detail. So you see this connectivity through different scales. And this picture is from our trip to RLC. Like this one is from a satellite, but we went to the RLC this summer. And you probably know about the ecological problems that in the 60s during Soviet Union, the RLC disappeared. And it's still like is one of the most famous theories that it's happened because during Soviet Union was used to, like, they were using a lot of water for cotton. But during this trip, we found out that actually it's not the main theory anymore, because there was like explosions, and there is a possibility that tectonic plates opened and the water left over the night, and people were running in the morning, kind of screaming, "Where is the sea?" But if you look further, like, you just realize that what looks like from satellites and the dome, it's like a kind of the same systems, but they're like very different. And something that was at some point the sea, because now we like this picture taken from the bottom of the sea. Before was a seabed. Currently, it's a desert. And and this desert is being changed like in a step. And basically, it's a different ecosystems that are being changed. So we're going from like a sea, desert, and now it's already like with planting a lot of bushes to try to keep the soil from wind, because in the region people have asthma and struggle a lot with breathing. So bringing kind of natural solution, it helps to overcome the problem. And in this particular case, they will be planting this for next 20, 30 years. And this plant was found in a desert thousand years ago, but now it's still like a relevant solution for a particular case because, let's say, nobody prepared us for what to do like if the desert like spreads. And it's currently like a huge problem even in Europe because they're spreading and deserts overcome the land. But if you look just on the detail and the scale, that's so many shells are left. So you see the presence of the sea. And it's very, let's say, like was very touching that people still believe, even they're basically like aiming for the forest, but they still are waiting to the sea to come back. And it's a salt pattern, so you kind of can see the relationship with the satellite's images from above. Sorry. And going even further on a planetary scale, like the satellite's images, this is from a non-extractive architecture project that you will have today lecture a bit later. But I worked on the constructing clouds and albedo, like looking into reflective layer of the planet. And if you see the most reflective point is, of course, where we have a lot of ice, Arctic, but at the same time, a lot of geoengineering strategies now focused on increasing the amount clouds and to increase a reflective layer. But if you compare it to Venus, you will see that in one case the reflectiveness is higher, but it doesn't mean it's better because it's very hot. So going into kind of a very important question, like if you intervene, if you enter like and change climate, could you be responsible for it? Can you run this enough simulations? How can you understand if it's reasonable or not? Like, for example, in terms of clouds, it's still not on the level in terms of simulation and weather condition. You still can't be responsible for it fully. And this in particular case interesting because it was our field trip to Iceland. And in Iceland, where like a strong eruption happens, it's called volcanic winter. The temperature goes down because there are a lot of particles like the lava ashes. They fly like and form more and more clouds. So going into like looking into this, that during this project, I tried to look like how to break it down. And for example, something like geoengineering that's been discussed for the last 60 years and heavily criticized. Could we break it down and, for example, empower architects like designers to work with these solutions? Because, for example, painting a white roof already will reduce the temperature, but you still kind of be in control. Your roof won't change dramatically climate compared to engineering clouds and spraying particles because it's still taken from a natural process, like when you spray particles like on a volcanic ash, but this already in a higher scale. It's like natural process, but already uncontrollable natural process. But for example, for ice restoration, like using particles and glass spheres, can help to lay it down and bring ice coverage back. And going back to the picture with the planets, you can imagine that like you can grow it bigger. Because as glacier melts, the high amount of black surface, like of water, is just keep speeding it up and speeding it up. Because as more black surface, heating faster, like melting faster. And I'm kind of showing you quite a few examples to also try like to build the methodologies that we're using and we start developing for our project. But it's a bit slow up. And it's kind of, the inspiration can be found like anywhere. Like this is from the same trip to Iceland, where lichen and moss were growing a lot in the volcanic rocks, but it's also one of the most reflective plants. And at the same time, it's also has like amazing insulation properties. So strategies like this could be very interesting, like to look further into. But some kind of this project in the end took like a form of very speculative ideas, as a mycelium, for example, and seaweed become very popular to look in architecture schools, and a lot of experimental projects, and people look into mycelium and seaweed for material purposes. But as I like to say, I'm really interested in its intelligence, and I will walk you through mycelium projects next. But this one is about that in every cloud you have tons and tons of spores. And why is it happening? It's happening because mycelium mushrooms, it's need humid and wet conditions to grow. So when it's warm and humid, it's start growing. So it's need to stimulate rain. And the level of intelligence here is pretty, I would say, crazy. Because it releases spores that get in the cloud around the spore, the drop is being formed, and then it's released. So in this case, we're playing with different projects about material, or for example, the same with seaweed. With seaweed, their particles are going and traveling. And in this case, if you make a material experiment or you use it for medicine, could you also think about what is changing in climate? And the same with seaweed, because when seaweed grows, now it's so popular for cosmetics and so popular for different nutritions because it has a lot of proteins, but it also helps and releases a lot of gas to create clouds, and those clouds will be traveling further and further on the land to release more and more water, and in this case increase vegetation. So it's kind of a speculative drawing, but we had a lot of fun thinking, what if we can produce clouds like this? And this going further into desert. Oh, it's always fun. We lately started playing with the concept about solar diamonds, because here is also very important that I like to say that there is no technology without a context. And when we started research diamonds, we understood that to form a diamond, it takes from 1 billion years to 3 billion years. Lab-grown diamond is 4-6 weeks. And but culturally, because they're so important for us, so precious, and people even feel very uncomfortable because it's such an expensive material that we don't use it for some things that it's not so important. But in reality, lab-grown diamond is 1/10 of the price of a natural one. And also, natural one already very overpriced because basically because they're ownership of one company, and they released, but we're not short on them. Their storage are huge. So the point is that we kind of like the concept, what if you use a reflectors, and if you use diamonds as one of the stroke-on materials, and you can use diamonds for thousands or millions of years to cool a certain surfaces of there, not to redo it every year, every 10 years, but have something that will stay for a long time. Oh. Yeah. So kind of still very experimental. It's one of the latest projects that we're doing now. And going now into material intelligence, as I said, for example, with mycelium, it's very interesting to grow a brick, but if you can do much more, do you need to grow a brick? And I've been playing for mycelium since I graduated from MTech, and initially I had a startup, but then it went in much more artistic exploration. And there was a few installations that I made, but the main purpose of those installations was to research how mycelium adapts to new conditions. For example, when it's growing in the air, compared to what's it usually does, it grows under the ground. What will it do if I can I will keep the conditions that it will survive, but I can create a new conditions that it will start creating new morphologies, new techniques, new kind of oh, new things. This is one of the installations from Darwin Museum. And it's like you see over like the 10 days, how much it changes because the nutrients are provided and it starts forming its network. And this one was focused about how mycelium can transfer water, and because it has a particular cells like aquaporous that can transport water from one plant to another, because like usually like a wood wide web, how the trees are connected. So when it's transferred, one transfers water, nutrients, could we use it for something else? So I was playing with like how I can pump water up with mycelium. And also in parallel, like with our love for computation, creating like simulation and looking what we can use it for morphologies and what's like we can use to generate a more, let's say like a patterns for the city or like different geometries. And documenting, because there are no archives, oh, it doesn't play. Unfortunately, it doesn't play. It was a lot of images. Because documenting a lot of different elements, we will see like a bit later, there will be like a set of images. With documenting different morphologies from those experiments, I started to create a collection that how mycelium is hunting for water, how is it finding nutrients, how is it mutate like and kind of changes because there are not enough nutrients, and a lot of very interesting stuff happening. Oh, finally. Okay. And also there are still like so much unknown because things like this, like that would grow as like a prototype in Venice. Even the condition, most of them was the same. For example, those bubbly like elements was something completely new that I still don't know like why they were generated like a particular prototype. But this is a prototype like after drying, and I mean there are a lot of questions if it's beautiful or it's like which relationship with natural materials and aesthetics. But this is just nutritions and mycelium as a binder, and there is nothing. I'm not so interested in the post like kind of fact after drying, after the mycelium is already dead, but it's still super interesting that it can be simple as it is. It's self-supporting structure without anything inside. There is no any reinforcement. And then we started looking like how can we optimize it, because the experiments, what you saw before, it was my kind of relationship with the organism, like, and also you can't work like in a real time. So we were thinking, how can we bring it to more a real time like exploration? And in this case, we need to start categorizing it. So if we have more mycelium inside, for example, print, weave, do something. If it's not enough, if it's like, for example, temperature drops, it slows down, stop. So it's kind of find those relationships. And we developed a concept about like a robotic unit that was like weaving and directing the organism to start growing based with the nutrition, but also kind of have an interactive element between them. But as a next step, so for example, in one case you can have a bioincubator, but how you start implementing it in an urban environment, because it's one case if it will keep being in the lab somewhere, but how to bring it to the urban environment, and also how to, I don't know, introduce it in the infrastructure and what will be experienced. So in this case, we played it as a more pavilion design. And we wanted to create the effect of the forest. The fact that you go through and you don't move like in the city, but you can enter from any point. And for example, for mycelium, you can grow it in the air, but you can't grow it without like, it needs darkness, or it becomes very weak. So you still need to provide darkness, like dark space. But still, if you create like a shell from biomaterials, if you can cluster them, which kind of environments we start building. Of course, this is like more a pavilion and experimentation, but conceptually, I think it's still like a very important thing. If you work with biological things, it's very hard to scale them up. So it's always a question, how do you scale it up and bring in our environment? And this, like, I usually like to show those two projects together because this one is like Biofold, and it's also was born from idea of mycelium. And initially, like, I joined Space 10, aka Innovation Lab, to do this one. But then it's become completely not about mycelium, it becomes something else. And Biofold was focused about furniture and about how to make it earth-friendly, how to empower people to produce at home, and how to create a more different like approach for it. And as one of the main things that's actually we use in all projects is, some of them, it's not playing, but it's about growth fabrication. I do believe that we need to implement in every design how it will be decomposed, how long will it exist, and you're responsible for it as a designer. That it's not anymore like I'm building it like it will be used for 1 hour, like 100 days, like, or like 100 years. You're responsible to design also a lifespan. And in this case, it's brought us to what's also the materials around, what could be useful, because it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's important, it's like probably there is agriculture and there is something produced. So there is rice husk, wheat husk, like corn, there will be bio-waste. And also because we need to increase the amount of agriculture and the amount of food we produce, it's also bio-waste will be raising. And in this case, for example, the huge problem in India that they just burn because it's so expensive to remove and clean the fields for the next year. So they burn, and then it's hard to breathe, and of course you just understand the conditions of it. So how you make something useful from it. And it is us, like somewhere probably at 4 a.m. experimenting, like in the studio, and trying to find a solution for it. And playing with biocomposites, kind of, it's always hard to keep them together. So we developed like a method as vacuum in compressing it, and also kind of how to start form the objects. But then there was like another problem that's like we used vacuum bags, and there was like so much plastic that we should be also responsible for. And as my team member, Thomas said, in this world it's so easy to make unsustainable projects. That's why we're not doing them sustainable, because everything is available from the shelf. And then we developed, also because we were collaborating with like IKEA on this, we decided to hack Fracta bag. And Fracta bag is one of the first elements that was 35 years ago reusable plastic. And that people were like, it was like a new idea to start using Fracta again. But also probably most of you have it at home because it's the most iconic element. And if you Google in your free time, there will be so much what's like people did without any reason to Fracta. But you also understand that culturally it's already implemented. So we need to use this infrastructure, and that we provide the tools for people to use it for something else. And we designed kind of instructions about what could you do with the tools around to create your device to form furniture. And we did like a lot of experiments. They still like were quite fragile. But yeah, as a concept, we provided platform that you can, how it's like you can fold, and how you can play, and how you can do it at home. And developed like a set of playful furniture to let people fold it and aggregate it at home. I'm now going to like one of the latest of the project that we're working now, and I think most of the things that I told you from different projects, they're now being implemented here. And this project we're doing in collaboration, like as a part of Hungary Eco-Cities and Starts residency, but also with support with OMA, Karl Ratti, and other spaces. So it's quite a lot of people that's like, we're thinking together how to do a more sustainable city, and our proposal was future protein, and it's all about muscles. We were looking for what could be provided as a protein, but also will be interesting in terms of CO2. And for example, in one case, we get a lot of nutrition from muscles. That could be really good, but we wanted to find other things, like which kind of muscle farms could provide us. And we started looking about it. In one case, they store CO2 in the shells. In other case, if you just throw it away, they will release CO2 back. But if you keep use it as a materials, they will stay and they can be used like much longer. But if you throw them naturally in the water, they will still kind of collect it. Yeah, haven't. And in this case, it's also a lot of like other things. It's like in one case protein, because as we need more and more food, we will have more waste. So we're thinking about waste and protein nutritions. How do we do like what is our physical prototype and what is our digital prototypes for it? And now we're developing like a muscle ID. And it's AI-based platform, and where we're looking into trading and relationship between CO2 and protein. How, for example, companies can trade or buy, for example, from muscle farm, how with blockchain, muscle can sell their CO2. So there are quite a lot of things that we're playing now with to find those relationships that is more than just one thing. It's not just food, you kind of a lot of things that it can offer for us. And of course, like in one, like you would just look on the all steps like over the production. So when there's like carbon collection, it happens when the muscles are growing, then when it's stored inside, but then of course they're like consumption. So we look at all those three to find the relationship. And that's like looking into all elements. We kind of now in the stage of developing the formula that we will be like already coding for the platform, but also what will be our interface and what's like infrastructure we need to implement system like this. And in reality, we want it to be not just, of course, for muscles. Muscles are just our focus, but if you plug in any food, you know, if I eat like, I don't know, 1 kilogram of meat, I'm responsible for this. Or I'm not, like, or for example, company pays me for like eating 10 kilograms of muscles a month, that because I'll be extracting this amount of CO2. And as a side, not even side project, but we played with a muscle PLA to start producing elements. And now we develop with the materials with a high amount of muscles, because here the percentage is still small, but it also was like a nice exercise about AI kind of generated geometries and looking for something natural. As somebody commented, it looked like something that you can find on the beach, but I think like my friend's parents said like you can just find it on the beach, but we're like, we managed to do good design. So yeah, and I think just to finish, it's we are looking into, of course, the next steps, if we will start building more muscle farms, or we also will be automating them. Will it become exclusion zones? And which kind of infrastructure set will we generate? And how would we feel when we come to visit them? So how to open those facilities also for like people, what will be the experience, which kind of architecture would be, and it's for the next steps, but like I'm very excited about also these more spatial solutions. And I think for still like as we trained as architects, it always comes at the earlier or later to like space design. So yeah, this is probably all.
questions from anyone?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was amazing to see what you've been doing. I'm just curious with so much of the kind of solutions for the future seem to be imagining new cities and building new cities. And I think kind of some of the other areas we've gone into this week have kind of, even a lot of these new materials are still so limited to other materials that are problematic in the kind of world of carbon and things like that. And I'm just wondering if if 80% of the building stock that's already here in the UK is there and we need to retrofit most of it, I'm wondering, have you looked into how your material studies could kind of go into the existing building stock and kind of look to improve from the retrofit rather than just imagine new cities?
Oh, thank you for the question. Yes, I think for every project we partly we're looking at this, as a more, let's say we're focused on more poetic experimental things, but it's interesting to see how much time it will take to implement it. Because, for example, with muscles, it's already, I would say, the most durable materials. Where with mycelium, it will be still insulations, and it's already developed, implemented in packaging, I think by Cavative. But in general, it's a very fragile matter that it takes time, and also to go through regulations, to go through policy, because, for example, during non-extractive, that as I said, we will have a talk later, we were looking a lot on the policies, and it was amazing case in Venice. That's our exhibition was all printed on a seaweed paper, but it was amazing that in 90s they collected seaweed from the lagoon because it's an invasive species. And in, I forgot the name of the company, I think Favini, who developed those seaweed paper. And in the 90s nobody wanted this paper because it's not white, but then, okay, it's kind of past. When now everybody wants not a white paper, they want something more natural, something they feel more responsible. So it's also storytelling to kind of build the infrastructure, implement, and somebody's had it. It's I don't know, you do better. But going back to seaweed, for example, now because the regulation in Italy, it's the name for this invasive species. It's waste. They're not allowed anymore to produce paper from it. And they buy seaweed from Norway, from a byproduct from cosmetics, because they can't use their own waste. Because government pays money to recycle seaweed, because, yeah, they pay quite a lot of money for waste recycling. So in this case, you just see that's in one case it's developed material, then why also touch the topic of cultural value of existing infrastructure, and then also, of course, policy is a completely new level. When it will be tested, when it will be certified, because the possibilities, there are a lot, but it takes much longer, of course, for these steps as well.
Thank you. My question is more about exactly certification, because in order to use something as a building material, you should have a certification for that. What do you think, will it be possible in the future to get certification for all of these materials? If yes, what time will it take approximately?
I think it's all possible, but it also depends on the country. Because, for example, I know that in Italy, it's much harder to build with ramen earth than in Belgium. So it depends on every particular country and what is I don't know, testing. So it will be different. For somebody, it will take 1 year, I don't know, coffee grind, plastics, or it will take years. And also it depends what you produce from it, because if you do something that it's not so crucial, it's one certification. If it's medical stuff, so the same cosmetics, I think it will be the easiest to think it will take time. But of course, to make a skyscraper from muscles will take will take quite some time. But I think I also, for example, when I start the project and I need to find the right material, like we did with a biofold, I was looking for a binder for a while because nothing wanted to dry inside the vacuum, no air, and all bio binders, they're not really good with drying because there is no chemical reaction. But we found a startup in the UK that's helped us to develop the binder that starts solidifying inside the vacuum. So it's also kind of looking what's a particular focus of different startups, material startups. And I quite often kind of collaborate with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very amazing, and I'm curious about the biofold. It's a wonderful project. I'm a little bit curious about the biomaterials. The biocomposite has a limitation in the mechanical properties and the high water assumptions. So it's more about the technical details. So I'm curious about how to improve this mechanical performance and how to avoid the water assumption, and maybe the strengthen will have a more potential in the future building load-bearing structures. Yes.
I think it goes again for depends on the material, because mycelium has quite a good hydroponic properties, but then it's not strong enough. Mussels have very strong and they're good with water because it's their natural environment. But then, for example, our experiments with more furniture one, they all were a bit too fragile to actually implement that everybody can use it. So it will take let's say a few more years to do that. It's also good to think about if you buy mushrooms in the store, they hardly ever get brown. But if you just go and pick them up, they probably will rotten much faster because it's all engineering. It's already all modified.
Yeah, so do you think about to combine the mussels and the stone rock like a concrete to combine them, the wood substrates to combine them together and make it stronger?
Yeah, but mussels are already very, very strong. It's like a full brick materials. I would say the wood and sawdust will be weaker. Usually combine mycelium with sawdust. This the main area, everybody's experimentation. I would say everything you need to test. So it's a particular mixture and particular because even with my experiments with caliform, with growing megastructures, of course you can't go, it's more a speculation that if it will be growing on a mega scale, but it doesn't grow on this scale yet. And also if you just use a different species of mycelium and different nutritions or different substrate, it won't work. So it's work actually, I experimented with this a lot, and then just, let's say by mistake, I mixed a particular thing that gave me the effect that they can grow in the air like this. So it's experimentation, experimentation, and experimentation.
Yes, thank you.
Could I? So earlier on you discussed the lifespan of certain materials, and I wanted to know, are there any sort of strategies to maybe not aid the decomposition, but make sure that it doesn't, run off and create eutrophication and whatnot?
Sorry, can you repeat the end of the question?
So you discussed lifespan and then decomposition, but what I wanted to know was, is there a strategy to stop the decomposition going into maybe rivers and creating eutrophication? Is there another way to maybe move the decomposition to perhaps agriculture?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends, because with mussels, people use them for agriculture, but in this case, they bring nutrition to the soil, but they release CO2 back. So you're looking for your best solution, because nothing is perfect, but at the same time amazing. So you look for your case. And where with mycelium, for example, materials, if they stay inside, they are really good. But if you throw them away, they decompose the closest example will be wood like without any coating. So it won't do anything. So you kind of trace those patterns. That's it was like a big case because we had a lot of fun experimenting with biofold using plaster, and we're getting amazing geometries. But of course, we can't release it with plaster because plaster itself, like, it's not that bad. But if you mix it with already other stuff, you'll be like responsible that it won't decompose. So you're kind of looking for your case because in this project it was like not like a nightmare, but it was really hard to overcome this. That we found an amazing, playful kind of technique, but binders were the hardest one. So, but with your binder, you will know how much time it will take to decompose it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question. Actually, for some like building materials and general materials that we use now, for example, fuel, there is a risk that it will end. One day, there will be no fuel more. If we will start to use, for example, mussels or seaweed in like mass production of the material, are there risks that it will also end somehow? Like we can grow them, but maybe the materials they need from the ocean, that they will end and then we cannot grow it? Is there a risk like that?
Mm-hmm. I think it's like a really good question. Because we're comparing now, like in the end of the month, I'm going to like a farm in Italy. And this is like, let's say, a very, like, quite a small farm, and they're not industrialized so much. But like a few weeks ago, I was in Netherlands, and in Netherlands, all their shore is already completely industrialized ecosystem, and they use all their water surface to grow mussels and oysters. And I think somewhere seaweed as well. So they already reached their capacity. They're still sustainable, but they reach the capacity that next they can use it just around already. I think there are no solar panels like wind turbines. There will be just a little bit left. But where you look at China, it's already mass industrialized, like it's all covered. It's already not sustainable because in this case you get in mussels. Microplastic, you get like everything inside. So let's say Netherlands is keep on the balance with this. Italy has like a lot of space to catch up, but like China is already overproducing it. So going back to your question, there is no one single species that will give you as a like solution. This is a capacity that we can increase. And we can shift towards it, but of course it's not just one that now, like for the next 100 years, will be eating just mussels. It's just one of the kind of more sustainable scenarios that we can look and shift, because there are more capacity, but of course we will reach it at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. One of the last images you showed was quite like an industrial scale production of mussels. And I just kind of wanted to ask you about what you think about the relationship is about using natural materials and natural organisms, but then kind of shifting or like using them in an industrial kind of scale, in an industrial way, or is there another way that can happen?
Thank you for the question. I think one of the parts of our research, we think also how to bring those materials back in the mussel farms. And for example, if we use, let's say on not a very sustainable farms, they're using plastic. There is like kind of socks to grow mussels, where there are more sustainable, like cotton, the ones that dissolve without so much like problems. But we're also thinking about how to use mussels and kind of create the loop with the same materials and build, and also think about like, should it dissolve in 2 years, 10 years inside? But it's also why we got so interested with mussels that compared to fish production, there are no antibiotics, no chemicals, and it's already reduced, like shellfish. Because for me, in the beginning, shellfish and fish was the same evil. But and when we met first time with the farms, they were saying like, we don't use antibiotics, we're a great farm. But when we started researching, they were actually all mussel farms are like this. But bringing back the materials, it's one of the words like we are revisiting, like looking at their fabrication process, and also because 7-10% of mussels are broken during the process. So could we already directly recycle it and take it back to the farm to build the infrastructure, or like a lot of elements, packaging, deliveries, because there are so many layers of it. Like, so yeah, I think like if it will go in this industrial scale as we showed, it should be built from all sustainable materials. And for me in particular, like if it will be so automated, like how it's also like, I don't know, safe for people to be there.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting. And I think something that you said that really captured my imagination was how you realized that there are assumptions about our materials from doing all this experimental stuff. Like, for example, thinking about decomposition and life cycle at the very start, that you know that this material won't last, and you do something about it. So, and then you design accordingly because it won't last. So I'm curious to know what other assumptions about the kind of materials that we have you uncovered from doing all this experimental thing. But because you did all this experimental thing, you realize that these were certain things we took for granted about materials that doesn't have to be like this. It can be different, and maybe that difference is where opportunities are. Yeah.
Sorry, did I understand correctly that it's about existing materials? Or
yeah, like I mean, what were the insights you got from all these experimental material, all this material experimentation that made you question assumptions about the existing materials that we have? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think like it's a very tricky question, because I like to compare it with we're already used to live in the perfect environments. So, for example, it's not like I'm ready to live in a mausoleum house. Or it's like, so there could be certain elements that we implement, but there will be a lot of elements that we need to get familiar with. So it's not like we go away from everything what's done before, but I like it's calling like we do the step back and think where we did like right decisions, of where we didn't like do such a good ones. Because with all, like, I don't know, even if you reduce single-use plastic, it's already a huge change. But let's say 10 years ago, I remember there was like no question. You just take a bag and you just go with this. Now you already question, should I use a plastic bag or not? And where in a lot of countries it's used still quite a lot, but in some countries like Denmark and Canada, I was very impressed by like that the story is so deep that they don't want anything that is not recyclable. Like I don't want to take away food if it's not in a recyclable package. So I think like you just see where you can implement and improve it, and also do you need all this amount of packaging, or for example if you need this like this amount of concrete, but which percent you can actually take away? Because like, do we still need to build everything from concrete? I was the same with the wood. There are a lot of experimentation, and it's amazing with wood, but of course you can just shift like to wood. So going back that there is no one solution, but you revisit every element. Because with Biofold, with the project furniture, we looked also partly in the like students that come for a year somewhere or 2 years, and you buy furniture from IKEA and then you throw it away in the end of the year. Could you do something more? Maybe it wouldn't be amazing wooden table that you want to keep for generations, but it will be something that you use for like 2 years and you're happy with this. But you also still being responsible for like using. So in this case, it's every single material needs to be questioned, every like element. Do you want this chair to be here for like 50 years, 500 years, or like less? And this is like, you don't want, but it probably will stay for a while. So it's kind of also, I think it's also not like a mass production, but our relationship with things, because we constantly update without even a need to update. So it's like which kind of quality of elements. So I think it's like a lot of points that gets together, like, and that's why you need to design. I don't know if it's like a gold jewelry that's like will be passed in the generations, and it's important for the family. It could be one thing, but the plastic chair won't be. So.
Time for one more question.
Thank you for the presentation. I have two quick questions about, can you elaborate a little bit on the research process? I'm curious to know, like, if, how do you start the research? Like, how do you decide which material you're gonna research? And do you ever find, like, along the way that it wasn't a good idea, or it, and then also you said something about many industries are doing research in seaweed and mycelium. Is it easy to access information from other industries? And yeah, that's the questions.
I think like as we like a young studio, we still like develop our research methodology, but with, let's say, every project has like a different story. But in the end, we've just found it's always there is a material part, fabrication, particular element from nature, like that we see potential to look in something that's like we're focused on muscles and protein, but there are other layers of water filtration, because, for example, every muscle filtrates 25 liters of water every day. So you look at water filtration and you start unfolding this story, and sometimes, yes, you understand that it wasn't worth it. And let's say it's always worth it, but you understand that no, I don't see it further. But or you understand something else, because like let's say when I applied to like Space 10 IKEA's Innovation Lab, I proposed them to do incubators for mycelium, but I ended up doing like very different things. But it all came from the same research, so you always find something. And I don't know, like as I said, after MTech, I was doing a startup about mycelium, but startup wasn't so interesting for me, where like, I don't know, more artistic, conceptual exploration was more interesting. But it also comes in our collaboration between me and Nataly, because Nataly is landscape urbanism, and I come from like, I don't know, fabrication, but then I have like concept that I want to go in a planetary scale. So I think building on top of each other's expertise, we're managing to look at something very small and something very big kind of together, because it's a very different expertise, how she understands landscape and how, I don't know, I understand the material and more like, I don't know, artistic, conceptual, like our speculative value in it and storytelling. So it also comes a lot from our collaboration with Nataly.
Thank you. It was great to see you here. And one final word, I think they show it's part of the long history of the AA, of people finding friends and forming practices during their time at the AA. And I think you've been a great example of that. Thank you.